So much has been made of Donald Trump's tweets, what he says, what he means, how we take it, how we report it. Well, let's get some different perspective on it. John Tantillo is with us. John's a marketing consultant. He is, a lot of different things, a member of the American Marketing Association, International Association of Business Communicators. He is a PhD. He's also the author of People Buy Brands, Not Companies. He's based out of Hofstra University. He is tweeting at Marketing Doctor, and John Tantillo joins us. John, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Well, Tim, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Put the tweets in their perspective. You, I believe, think this is, well, Donald Trump called it modern day presidential. We're now modern day presidential coverage, I guess.
Well, yes. And you see, what I say is when they say it's not about marketing, it's about marketing. And marketing, from my perspective, is the new communications model. It's basically replacing messaging as a way of analyzing what Trump is doing.
Distinguish between those two.
I'm not calling him President Trump. I'm calling him Trump because that's the new model.
Well, distinguish, if you can, between what those two are, the messaging versus the marketing.
Okay. Marketing is all about satisfying needs and knowing your target market. Messaging has to do with the way something is said. So President Obama and President Reagan were great communicators, and Trump is a great connector. He connects and resonates with his target market. And that's what people are forgetting about. That, as Nixon would say, or in the old days, the silent majority. A lot of people who have not been able to express how they feel about their politics. And the brilliant thing about Trump is that Trump brought in people who traditionally did not vote. And you say what you want. He was able to use state-of-the-art digital marketing techniques that was just not messaging. So you had all the PR/messaging people say, well, his message is all wrong, and what he's doing is he's not pivoting. But you can't, Tim, you can't sell meat to vegans. No matter what this guy does, he is not going to be liked by X amount of people.
Years ago, I used to characterize, working in radio, I've dealt with sales for a long time, and I remember the expression that somebody used one time is, that guy could sell refrigerators to Eskimos.
Yes.
But I also said, but he could only sell one. In other words, once people realize the need is not met, then you can't sell another one. What does this say about what the president's ability to get elected, which was phenomenal? It was an amazing election. He reminds us constantly that he won. But now that he's in the White House, does that messaging technique, that connection that you're talking about, does that still suffice? Because he actually has to get something done. He has to, he's not just selling meat to vegans. He's going to have to sell survival to vegans.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you that I was at a party over the weekend, and I go very gingerly, or I can't mention Trump for fear that there'll be attacks and what. And I was with an entertainment crowd, and this is what shocked me. And I mentioned what I do. I look at Trump from a brand perspective, and Four people asked me for my business card and wanted to read my articles. And then one guy comes up to me and says, don't tell anybody, but I think this guy's doing a great job. So my point is, and I have this saying on my website, It's not about you, it's about your customer. And the problem that we have in D.C., L.A., and New York is that we look at it from how could anybody take this guy seriously? And and what's happening is that there are a lot of people, and that's what we have to be. And that's my message. It's not about you, it's about the customer, and it's about those people that voted for him. And there's a lot of people that might not be open about voting for him that are out there, and that's what you got to be careful of. And that runs across all consultants, pollsters, the whole what I would call the establishment that Trump has in fact run against.
John Tantillo with us. He's a marketing consultant, and he is also the author of the book People Buy Brands, Not Companies. Just guessing that you're from the New York area, since you have that accent.
You guess?
Just a little.
You can't get my Queens accent.
When you went to a party, I kind of knew. But
you did.
I was just kind of curious though about that, because Donald Trump's style, not just the fact that he tweets about a lot of different things, but it's also the brashness, the language, the approach, the sort of in your face, is kind of New York. And people wondered if that would play outside the Beltway. It actually has played, it seems, better in the middle part of the country than anyone ever expected. But it doesn't always. What is unique about his approach that works, that doesn't work for other people that have that kind of an accent, that kind of an in-your-face approach? What does he do differently?
Well, he connects, and I mentioned that earlier. But as a friend of mine said, who was actually from Virginia, he says to me, "This guy is a millionaire, or a thousandaire, or a billionaire, and he gets me. He understands me." Now you get guys like you and me and my other friends that say, "How can they fall for this? This guy is, he's a very sophisticated guy, and he likes to play with the truth." But for some reason, all right, people like him. They like his I would say his unfiltered perspective that politicians have been trained to do, and that it's so refreshing for them. And it might not work for people in, the D.C., New York, and L.A. corridor, but it certainly works with the man and woman on the street.
Is there a way that this translates? Usually somebody will see a strategy that works in politics, and they'll say, I wonder if I can figure out how to take that approach and apply it to my case. Can other people do this, or is Donald Trump a one-off? Is he an exclusive brand that cannot be duplicated?
No, I think that and that's the reason for the book. People buy brands, not companies. I think you're going to see less focus on Democrats and Republicans and more focus on personalities. So from the other side of the aisle, look to Clooney and Cuban. And you're going to have those types of personalities. So I see in the future the personalities taking over from the parties. That's what we in fact will respond to.
Wow. So again, John Tantillo, Donald Trump, is this something that he keeps doing for as long as he can do it? Because quite frankly, it seems exhausting to me to be able to keep up this pace.
He's a brilliant marketer. Even though a few years ago I said he was a promoter, I think he's moved from the promotion part, the P.T. Barnum approach, to a more sophisticated marketing approach. So he keeps reinventing himself, which drives his non-supporters crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's a phenomenon in American politics. There's no question about it. The question is that still remains for a lot of people is what does it mean in terms of his being able to be a good president? That's not your concern, obviously. That's not your area of expertise. But
That
I think
is correct.
you've explained to us a little bit more
changing.
about how he got where he is, though.
Yeah, well, yes, and he's changing the presidency. You see, and everything is changing today, Tim. I mean, just yesterday, Volvo announced that the engine, the combustible engine that we know, is probably finished. After 20 years, 130 years, they're thinking about, a hybrid as the new model. And this is what I tell students. This is what I tell my friends. The world is changing. And if you don't use marketing, it's like the admirals in World War II who didn't believe in radar. Or can you imagine going on a trip without your GPS and going with a regular map? Who uses regular maps anymore?
Yeah. Cultural change is certainly a part of the landscape here. Well, we do appreciate the conversation. John Tantillo, thanks so much.
Oh, thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure.
John Tantillo, marketing consultant, New York-based, a PhD at Hofstra University, is also the author of People Buy Brands, Not Companies, trying to look inside what it is that brought Donald Trump to where he is. The tweets specifically is what we were focusing on. If you want to talk to John or tweet at him, you can do so at Marketing Doctor.